People who are or have been homeless, what was the first night without a home like, and how did you adapt to your new situation? Slept in my vehicle, couch surfed with a friend, squatted in an unused trailer, all while still working at a Walmart. Saved enough to get a crappy apartment and just kept going from there. I slept in a near-empty garage block. Put blankets over my front and rear seats like a tent and had a duvet to keep me warm. Was absolutely fine until I woke up in the morning, had a wee behind my car and noticed the white van next to me had an electric plug in it. Someone was sleeping in the van. Slept there a few more times. Kinda creepy but kinda made me feel safer too. I slept in the school parking garage. The security guard fucked with me once and I asked him whether he would rather me go park on the street, in a not nice part of LA, or sleep in there where I was at least safe. He never bugged me again. None of them did. That's good, they're probably most worried you're a crackhead or something that's going to cause problems. And it'd be on their ass if you did. Exactly. I work security in a big California city. If you're just down on your luck I'll look the other way. But if the boss finds out I'll have to send you on your way. So don't cause a fuss and everything will be fine. I didn't really realize what was going on, I was about 6 to 7 at the time. Dad said we were going to go for a drive and to pack my backpack with all the clothes I could fit and one toy. Mom was just crying. Me and my brother sat in the back seat, he was a little older and was holding our Sega Genesis and looking scared. We drove for a little while, it was already getting dark, and we parked in front of a Walmart and Dad said he had to rest for a while. Was the first of many, many nights we slept in the car. I remember one of my parents was always awake, with their hand in their coat pocket. Looking back it was obvious they had a gun for protection, sleeping in shifts. I was homeless for a couple of months a year or two ago. I had a car and a low-paying job so I lived in the woods in a tent for a bit. The first night was miserable. I ended up sleeping really uncomfortably in the passenger seat of my car and it was a really cold night. After that I got a tent and slept on an old climbing pad I had. The first night was hell but the next several weeks were actually not so bad. I had a spot in the woods where I was well hidden and would cook over a fire. I really didn't have it that bad but it gave me quite a bit of sympathy for people who really do end up on the streets in a much more desperate situation. Shit is not easy. I kept waking up in the middle of the night and would start walking home. I'd get a few steps then stop and realize I had nowhere to go and turn and walk back over and lay on the ground. The ground is very cold and I felt a lot of shame. When I was about 16, I went to homecoming with a bunch of kids and we had all planned to have a slumber party afterwards, can't remember where. I was in a town about 20 minutes away from home and had no cell phone. It was around 9:30 p.m. when everyone started to drop off and go home, and eventually I was by myself. I was about a 15-minute walk from a park I knew that had bathrooms which locked. I went there and curled up on the floor, trying to make myself as small as possible in my homecoming dress to keep warm. Some kids came in the middle of the night and yanked and banged on the door. Scared me half to death they would find me in there sleeping. The next morning I woke up and walked to a friend's house where they were all surprised to see me. Nobody commented that I was still wearing my homecoming dress. In hindsight it may have looked like I spent the night with a guy. Prefer that to them knowing I spent the night on a bathroom floor. I've come across a statement about homelessness where it says that no matter what you do, concrete doesn't get warm, so the best thing to do is get cardboard to put underneath you. It's true. I've been homeless several times since but always had somewhere to go. That was the only time I ever slept outside like a homeless person and I wasn't even homeless. I'll never forget how afraid I was. I've never told anyone that story before. First night my wife and I landed up sleeping outside. We slept in a local park that I knew. We had come down from the countryside with a few rands, enough for one meal maybe, and had hoped to stay with a friend. He was unable to give us a place to stay, so we had to sleep outside. After the insecurity of that first night, I told my wife that we have to find a safer place to sleep, so we climbed up the slopes of Table Mountain, about a 1-hour walk, and found quite an obscured spot amongst some bushes and trees. We cleared it out of sticks and rocks, made it a bit habitable, and then went back to the city looking for work. We'd spend the day going from one place to the next looking for work until it started growing dark. Then we'd head up the mountain to our little spot for the night. Did that daily for a month until we were able to secure a small shack room in the townships, where we stayed for another few months until I get a job offer. Was my wife's temp waitering jobs that kept us fed whilst I was looking for work. Biggest challenge was mental, keeping focused, clean, looking presentable, and just making my job looking for a job. When I was a teenager, I had lots of problems with my mom. I pretty much chose to be homeless. I slept at a Catholic church across from my high school so I could still make it to school and graduate early. I remember feeling really sad because I slept where they put people's ashes, and I remember being so sad that those people could comfort me in death more than anybody alive. I used to talk to them. If there's camera footage, I look insane. I never realized how alone I was in the world until I was homeless. And I never realized how cold concrete can be. It chills you right to your bones and is painful. Sleeping in my car wasn't that bad. It was summer, so it was pretty warm, which was my biggest issue. Showered in the gym, and spent most of my day at the library before going to work. For the first few nights it wasn't bad. However, one night police found me sleeping in my car and escorted me to the local homeless shelter, which was one of the most terrifying nights of my life. Since I'm lying there in a top bunk, when a huge argument breaks out because one guy breaks out some meth, wouldn't share it with a second, then a third got pissed and started screaming at them to be quiet because he needed to sleep. Edit: since this is coming up a lot, people keep asking how it was legal that the police escorted me to the shelter. I don't know the legality of the issue. What I can say is that I was woken up by a knock on my window to see 4 cops, 2 cop cars. They were singing those super bright flashlights through my window at me, and I didn't even think of arguing with them. I started being homeless at 19. A previous foster parent put me out for coming home from college one night, and I had called up a friend last minute. When I started to realize I wouldn't be able to crash or stay anywhere, I am fairly certain I started to dread, and spiral into a constant, underlying depressive state. All I could think about was, am I going to die like this? Do I matter? Will no one help me? I'm sad, I'm scared. I don't want to feel like I have to beg. What if I'm stuck like this? Is this really my life right now? 19 to 26 was a very challenging time. It was terrifying and cold and hungry. I didn't sleep a wink. I adapted over time. Extremely steep learning curve to surviving homelessness. Nothing really prepares you for it. It wasn't awful until it sunk in that it wasn't going to change anytime soon. At first it's just shocking. Like, blank mind shocking. How did I get to this point? Then it's scary and surreal. And I had my kid with me, so I was busy keeping him safe and fed. Awful came about a month into it. And yes, we have an apartment now and all is well, thank you. I was kicked out by my mother at 16 and spent 2 months homeless before the local authority placed me in foster care. I think what hit me first was how my own mother could make one of her own children homeless. I felt like the least favorite of her children. It all came out of nowhere. I racked my brain for years after, trying to think of what I might have done in particular. Also the crippling loneliness you feel when you are trying to get hold of people to ask for a place to sleep for the night. I could not feel more alone in the world when someone would either not answer my message or tell me they were busy. I'm pretty sure I camped out in the park that night. Didn't sleep at all. I was about 9 years old, and my mom said we were going on a camping trip. I didn't really suspect anything, as it was summertime and we went camping a lot when I was younger. although I did wonder why we were packing so much stuff. After a few weeks of camping, I started to complain, but my mom kept insisting that it was good for us to get in touch with nature, etc. Then school started, and we were still camping. And we kept camping for another 6 months. When we finally got a house, my mom cried with joy. And we don't camp anymore. When you're a teenager, it seems kind of cool to sleep in the car, on the couch or floor of a friend or acquaintance, or for your dad to scam a rented apartment for a month or two without paying for it. Moving around every few months carrying everything that you can in an old Honda Civic seems like an adventure. We once moved a couch across town in it. We must have looked like a couple of idiots. Once, after a few months of staying in a place where we had no furniture, were sleeping on the floor, the carpet of which was so flea-infested that you could literally see the fleas hopping around. The landlord got so frustrated with us basically squatting in his property, my dad promised to pay and never did, that he removed the front door. So we went out to scam some food from somewhere and came back to find no front door. Which in retrospect is a pretty awesome way to get someone out of your property. One of the ways we scammed food would be to go to the breakfast buffet of a fancy hotel, tell the server that we had a room there, eat a ton of food and just walk out. This was also kind of fun, but looking back it is a kind of messed up way for a dad to treat his teenage kid.